So welcome everyone to today's lesson. We're going to be creating this oversized bird of paradise. All right. My original painting was sold, so you're going to be here with me and painting along with me as I create my second version of this. And then I'm going to be real excited to share this on my Facebook Live later tonight for everybody to see, because I think lots of people didn't realize how wow this was until you see it on a big piece on a canvas. So I'm going to be doing my Facebook Live at 8 o'clock tonight if you guys want to come back and join me for that. Okay, so I'm going to be switching to my other camera. We're going to get started on this. I'm working on a 24 by 30 canvas here, and I'm going to be able to zoom in from that distance. So I'm going to come down here. So now you can see at least the whole canvas. And I have my little friend up here. He's going to be helping me. Ha ha. Okay, so couple of things. I know some questions came up about the new flat oversized brushes, and do you have to have these, or all I'm going to say is these are wonderful brushes. I'm excited to use them with this project, but you do not have to have these. I think the largest brush, if you have something like this where it's like 1.5 inches flat, just something that you can, we're not looking for tight chisel edges on this particular design. So if you've got something like this where you can, at least get a large amount of paint moving, that'll be fine. Okay. So, but I am going to be using, I won't be using the great big one. This is the 3-inch one. But I will be using I think the 2-inch and the 1-inch. Okay. So I will set those off. These are new on onestroke.com. Wow, that was an extreme close-up right there. These are new on onestroke.com. So if you don't have these, it's a 4-piece set. They're wonderful chisel edge flat brushes. You can go to your home deck stores or whatever and buy, big paint brushes, 2-inch, 3-inch, whatever, but they're not going to have this chisel edge like this does. Okay, so see that? And so we're going to be able to get some nice crisp strokes with this, but they're also wonderful for working with our one-stroke technique too. Okay, so I'm going to get my 1-inch out here also. We're going to be working first with our background, and I'm going to be applying the background with a painter sponge. Okay, so I want you to think about, as we're applying this background, let's look at the picture, right? So see the picture. If we were to take this picture and fold it in half, and then fold that in half, right? And then let's open this up. I want you to see that this light area here, this gradation of light to dark, happens mostly in this upper right quadrant. So if you think about your big canvas in terms of quadrants to get the background on, that's a great way to get that light big enough, because I don't want it just a tiny little spotlight up there. It should be a glow that comes down, and then the bird of paradise sits in that glow, and then everything behind it is going to be dark green. Okay. And you can do any color background you want. I just chose to use the pale and dark greens and a little bit of yellow. So that's up to you. All right, but let's get our colors out here. All right, so I'm going to put out quite a bit of sap green. It may still not be enough, but I'll show you just a second when I get this out on my plate how much I'm putting out. Okay. So then I'm putting out citrus green and daffodil yellow. And when you're working with oversized, squeezing out of the little top of the bottle just sometimes isn't enough. So I just open them up and squirt them out. So this is what I've got to work with right now. I've got a good amount of sap green, and we have citrus green and daffodil yellow. All right, so I'm going to get my sponge damp, I'm going to dip my fingers in water and then rub that on the bottom of my sponge. And then I'm going to pick up, and I'm going to work with my light colors first. All right, so I'm going to pick up Daffodil Yellow first. And let me stand up here. All right, so we're going to be in this upper quadrant right up here. So I'm going to start right up here in this corner with the flat of my sponge. And don't forget your edges as you're doing this. While you have the color on your sponge, that's the best time to do it. All right, so I'm going to put the yellow in there first. All right. And then I'm going to come in with my citrus green, same sponge, just picking up citrus green. Now I want to turn my sponge this way so that the curve is facing inward towards the center of the canvas. All right, and I'm going to bring this a little bit closer. I'm going to apply that so that the back part of my sponge will soften the two colors together as I'm adding that, making circles so that it puts the color into the canvas. And I'm going up into that yellow slightly. Okay, so you can see a little bit of movement in there. And I continue to apply that green and apply it to the edges as well. Okay, going to pick up more of this green, no more yellow, and I'm going to continue to apply that. Okay, so I'm going to come all the way out. Now I can take my sponge and flip it this way, and you got to work quick because it starts to dry. Okay, and I'm going to go past that quadrant edge that I was telling you about as I work this. Now this is starting to dry. I'm not going to touch that anymore. I'm going to continue to add some more of the citrus green. So I'm well past that quadrant edge. And I'm working that into it. Okay. I'm seeing a little hard edge right there, so I'll get rid of that. And make sure I got this edge good. Yep. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to, just with this dirty sponge full of paint, I'm going to pick up a whole bunch of sap green. And still with my brush angled down towards the left corner in this edge of the sap and citrus, I'm going to make circles and then come into the citrus slightly. I'm not pinching and I'm not lifting my sponge. You have to be flat on the canvas with the whole sponge. And then I'm letting it come back in slightly into that citrus green, right? And when you're working on a big canvas like this, also, you have to kind of step back and look at it, get away from it a little bit so you can see what you need to do where, because you can get so close to it working on something that you don't see spots that need to be addressed. Okay. All right, so I'm getting a pretty good coverage there. Again, you have to work kind of quickly because it starts to dry. So you wet it back up real quick and that's good. And then I'm continuing to pick up more of the sap green and working my edge. Now it's not as dark as I want it to be yet, but this is a good start. We're going to come through with kind of a second coat of this green to darken once we let it kind of dry. So don't forget your bottom edge too, okay? If you're on an easel, you can always come back and do that bottom edge later. It's just dark green, so it should be fine. See, I'm getting a dry edge here. So I'm going to press a little bit and try to break that up while it's still wet. There we go. So you're just kind of working on getting this first coat of dark green on here. I ran out of my sap, so I'm going to put more down. Okay, lots of sap green. Okay. Trying to find a place to hold on to it so it doesn't fall off my easel. All right, so you'll notice I'm not really caring which way I got my sponge facing anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because like I said, we're going to do kind of a second coat once we get this dark on here. So you want your first coverage, just filling in the entire canvas, and then we're going to come back and handle this kind of dark area. So you can see there's just a ton of movement in there right now, and that's not what I want for the end result. But we got to just kind of get that on there and let it dry a little bit. And then we'll come back and darken with another coat of the dark green. Okay. So you can use a hair dryer, heat gun, clean foam plate. I'm just going to grab a hair dryer right here and get this dry real quick so we can keep going. All right. Okay, so now what I can do is I can start down here in this lower left corner, picking up a lot more of this sap green. And then you can even tap it with your sponge so that you're not making so much of that movement, because it's already in the grooves of the canvas from the first application. So you're putting it on kind of heavy now. You could also, do this after you get the design on and go around with a paintbrush around the edges of the leaves and petals and things, but you have to be a little more careful with that, and it might be a little uneven. So I feel like this gives me the best look. So tapping, you're applying the color, and then you're tapping to kind of even it out. This is going to be our darkest corner here. And I'm going to work my way back towards that lighter edge without going too far, so I can keep this kind of transition from light to dark. Okay. More paint. I'd say in this you probably will go through most of a 2-ounce bottle of the dark green. No, I'm going too far that way. I need to come this way. There we go. You see how I apply it, smooth it out, and then tap it to get rid of the movement. Now, as I start to get closer to that lighter green edge, I'm just going to let the back of my sponge bring those colors together as before and leave some of that movement there, right? So the part that I want just dark is down here and along the left side, and then we'll transition back up into lighter. Okay, so see the tapping? What I don't want is a hard line right there, okay? So I just let the back end of that sponge just soften that out. I may come in with a little bit of that. Actually, let me grab a little paper towel. That got a little heavy right there. Okay, that's better. A little bit more of the sap and we'll be done with that. Okay, now stand up here and get a different angle at it. This is what I'm talking about. You want to kind of move around and see in different light if you like what this looks like. I'm seeing some lighter spots down here that I'm just going to darken in by tapping in some of the sap. And again, you can come in later after it's all done if you see a few light spots that you don't like at the bottom. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and fold this sponge up and put it in my basin to clean later. And I'm going to grab the smaller one. Okay. Get that damp. And I'm just going to make some adjustments right here with some of the citrus green. All right, so I'm just going to kind of try to bring some of that together here. So just, I put a very little on here and I want to soften that edge a little more together. So you have to be careful with this because if you turn it this way, then you get a hard edge on the bottom. So you got to kind of work it from both angles. And don't stress over it. I mean, if it's not, you're just looking for a glow. A little bit more, I think. And just kind of pull that all back together. Okay. There's a glare hitting that, but hopefully you can see that all right. Might just grab a little more of that daffodil yellow and bring that back in here. It's a process, right? So one application you may not be completely happy with. You want to work it till you are. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So I've got that soft glow on the edge with the light green. And then we've got this bright yellow up here, not representing, necessarily a sun, but maybe just light casting from above. Okay, so I'm done with that. I'll go ahead and fold that up, put it in the other brush basin. All right, so now we need this dried so we can apply our pattern. So I'm going to come back to my hair dryer. It has to be completely dry or your transfer won't stick very well. And I noticed a little spot right here where my thumb took off the paint. There we go. That hair dryer noisy. I tried to cover up my microphone. I'm assuming it's okay. When you're working with a large canvas like this, it is a good idea to have a floor easel or at least a tabletop easel that you can stand it up on. It's very difficult to work on a canvas this size when you're on a table. um, you have to keep kind of maneuvering around it or whatever. But if you've got the space and you can do, like when I originally painted this, it was on my dining room table, and I actually had two small tabletop easels side by side holding this big canvas. So if you have that capability, I highly recommend it because wrestling with it on the tabletop can be difficult. Okay, just letting this kind of air dry and not be warm. And I think we're in good shape now. Now comes the interesting part where we need to transfer the pattern of that actually is better done on a flat table. But I'm going to attempt to do it and hold my transfer paper up on the canvas. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so first I'm going to do is tape my pattern down. So this is a 24 by 30 canvas, and so it ends up being a 12-page puzzle to tape together. All right, and so this goes right on here like that. And then I'm going to take some painter's tape and stick that up. Even with one this size, it's a good idea to tape it in multiple locations, top and a side at least, so that it's not shifting on you when you shift the transfer paper around. So just give me 1 second while I get this all attached, and then we'll do the transfer. Okay. So this way I've got it taped here at the top, and then a couple on this bottom edge. I'm going to do one side at a time with the transfer paper, flipping it underneath. And so I have another piece of tape here reserved for one side. I'm going to tape down so it doesn't shift. And then I'm going to work on this side, and then we'll switch it around. So I'm using white transfer paper. It'd be easier to see on camera. Gray or white should work fine for you. So you're going to slip that shiny side down. Yeah. Under your pattern. So I'm just going to start right here at the top. Oh, and that works, so I could tape it right there. Ah. So just lightly tape that. There we go. Okay, so I like to use a ballpoint pen with the ballpoint out, okay? It won't poke through the paper that way. It doesn't have a sharp point on it, but the point is rounded like a stylus, or you can use a stylus. I just like the pen because then I can see where I've been as I'm doing this transfer. So I'm just going to start up here in this left corner. You do not need to make the lines as wide as they come out on this pattern. Just make a line. All right, so the first thing, remember, you think about something like this, you're going to work from the back to the front. So the first thing we really want to focus on are the leaves, okay? Now there is one piece that I'm going to do at the end, which is going to be this part that holds the neck of the bird, the stem. But the rest of it, we're going to go ahead and put those in right now so that we can let those dry and then come forward with all the orange spikes coming out. Those are orange and red with touches of yellow. Lots of blending that we're going to be doing with this. And so what I want you to be careful of or mindful of is not leaving hard edge lines with your strokes, okay? So tip that and bring it up. That's better. Get some of that glare off of there. Okay, so working with, I'm trying not to kick this, but my chair keeps doing that. Working with, I'm going to be working with the 2-inch. So if you got an 1.5 inch flat or something, or if you have this 2-inch brush, that's what I'm going to be working with to do these leaves. Okay, so we're going to put down the same colors we were using before. We've got citrus green, and sap green and a little bit of daffodil yellow for some highlights will be great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get this wet. If you've never used them and you first open them, definitely make sure you give them a scrub back and forth in your brush basin to get any sizing out of the brush that they put in when they manufacture them. Okay, so sorry, I'm up here. Shouldn't need much medium with this if you use enough paint. So I want to show you, I'm going to get a bunch of sap and then come over here and stroke a bunch of citrus green, and we're going to double load. It's a great big double load right there. More sap. Okay, lots and lots of paint. So these brushes are going to use a lot of paint. Okay, so let's work on this leaf. So first of all, we have a center stem. I'm going to make it light so you can see it right here. And I'll do the tips in just a minute, but this is the important part. So from that center stem, we're going to, you know what, I'm going to zoom in a bit on this so you can see it better. Where's my zoomer? Didn't I open that again? There we go. Okay. So with the light green up, I'm going to come along this stem, and then I'm going to come away from the stem on the flat of the brush, come to the side of the leaf, stand up and slide up. Now, what I don't want you to do is keep doing that. I want you to, because I'm just trying to fill this little segment right in here that goes around the stem of the flower. Okay, so I'm just getting the shape of the bottom of my leaf. All right, now I want you to take that loaded brush and you're going to come right to the stem here. And you're going to push down, release, and stand up on the chisel. Now you notice how that gets really stripy right there? We're not going to leave that. We're going to come back this way and we're going to come over the top of that and let, just with the chisel edge of our brush, blend that slightly. So it softens it out. It doesn't muddy up my brush too much, right? It looks okay. It's just softening some of that lighter green. And we're going to come up here and pull down to the stem, right? And that's right where that split is right there. So if you leave those striations of color, it will look a lot prettier than stripy. Okay, and you can keep working that if you want. You can come back and add a little more dark in there. You can slide back over this. Okay, make it as light or as dark as you want. You can flip the brush if you want to come in with some darker on top. Okay, and just kind of keep working that. Flip the brush back and come down. All right, now that's a little lighter than I want it to be, so I'm going to put some of that dark back in there. There we go. Doesn't that look pretty? So I stayed on the chisel the whole time when I was doing that blending. It's the first few strokes that you want to push and stand up. Right, push and stand up. Now here gets a little tricky because you're going over this petal of this flower. So I'm just going to come and pull that right in there. And we're going to fix it in just a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to come back. So there's all this heavy paint on here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to sweep down on the chisel to soften. I'm going to tip that forward so you can see without the glare. There we go. Okay, so we're just trying to create this look. Now, when you come through here, give it a little twist. So you're up on the chisel like this at the base of that flower petal, and you're going to twist it down, right? And then you follow that same process down. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so that's the process for the leaves. We're just going to keep on marching up here. So right through here, we're going to come to the stem, and we've got this split right here. So I'm going to go to the top of that. So I'm going to push and slide and stand. Okay, now where I went over there, I can leave it, or I can take a damp, clean brush and take it right back out. No emergency. Okay, so right here, we want to fill that in, and then you can come down and do that blending on the chisel. Okay, see there? Now I'm all kinds of feathery and messed up here in the middle. I'm going to come back and add my stem. And so that stem, it's not a prominent like center stem. You really just want to come on the chisel and swipe it down. But then from one edge, I feathered it out because it's almost exactly the same color as the leaves. Okay, so it's good to have a line in there, but it's not really pronounced much. All right, now let's come up to this upper part. So we've got a little peep of it right there and a little peep of it right there. And I could come and load a different brush, but I'm not going to. I just want to make sure I remember where the center of my leaf is, kind of right there. And so you're just going to fill that in. And right here, we're going to push and stand up. It's behind here, and we're going to do some shading over it so it's not too worrisome. I'm going to flip my brush just a little bit so I can get a little bit of lighter down there. It's not so flat. And then this is just all dark green under here. A little bit of that stem. Then I can finish right up here. I want this kind of light because this is really dark otherwise. Okay, it won't show. And I don't want it to be like super coming forward showing, but I do want it to be noticeable. Okay. All right, so let's flip back down. And we have this other leaf that's coming in front of that. So we have our stem. It kind of comes like this and down, and it goes off. So if you've got a wide canvas, you want to make sure you address the edge because that's going to be showing when you hang it. Okay, so I got my center stem, and we're going to do just like we, oh, don't forget the bottom too. I almost did. There. Now I'll come back and I'll handle that, but I just want you to think about, when you're doing this, you got to come from under the bottom, right? And do your edges of your leaves. So just remember that when you're doing yours. I'm going to push and stand up, push and stand up. Going right off the edge of that. Now see all that striping? Now I come back with my chisel edge and I just soften right over those. So we get stripes, kind of striations, but it's not hard stripes, okay? And then on the edge here, right? And then we want to do the bottom half. So we're going to come from here, push, oops, push, stand up. So if this leaf is kind of turned, this edge is going to be narrower and it's going to have a little bit of a edge on it on this side right here. Right, so come back and work with that. Now I want to make this just a little darker. So let's bring in some of that sap green. There we go. Okay, so you're just working the same thing on the edge, and then you're going to come in, add that stem, and pull one of those edges away. There we go. Okay. All right, so that takes care of the leaves on that side, and then we just have this other one here. So I'm going to make this one just slightly lighter. And it has a bit of a roll in it right here, okay? So we have to add that, which is kind of fun. So to make this slightly lighter, I'm going to side stroke some of this daffodil yellow on my citrus green edge. This is going to bring it forward just a little bit more than these are, okay? So that's lightening up that corner, right? So we're going to put our stem in here. Okay, and that's just for placement to start, right? So we touch on the stem, push down, and slide to the outside and stand to the chisel. Now the alternative way is you could come from the outside and come back to the stem. Either one is fine, right? So if you're more comfortable doing it this way, you can do that. Okay, and then you're going to soften on the chisel. A little bit dark green and more of that citrus and yellow. We're going to come right here, push, and stand up. I'm going to come down along the split to the stem. I'm going to grab just a little bit of sap green on the chisel edge of my brush and bring that from the edge over, just kind of sweeping that on there. Okay, then we're going to continue, and I'm out of my sap green. I told you we go through a lot of sap in this. Sap, citrus, and yellow. And at the point, you're going to touch and pull back like that, okay? Then when you come and do your little softening with the chisel edge of the brush, you can bring that together just a little better. And lighten that upper edge. I'm going to pull just a little sap back in from this inside. There we go. Right now, this outside edge here is a little jagged, and you probably can't see that, but I can. So I'm going to just take my damp brush, and a little of that has been dried already because I waited too long. So I'm just going to come in with some sap green on that brush. All right, and clean up that edge. So there. Okay. When that dries, I'm going to shade some more also, as I mentioned. All right, so almost done with these leaves. We're going to come back and get our colors. All right, so sap and citrus, and then I've got daffodil on the citrus. Okay, so I'm going to ignore these curls for now. All right, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go right over them. And out to the tip. All right, now do our little softening here. And you can decide at this point how many of those curls, if any, you want to do, whatever you're comfortable with. Before I put those in, though, I'm going to add my stem back in here and then pull that out. Okay. So the way to add these curls, let me zoom in just a little tighter. And we'll turn on autofocus now. There we go. All right, so you can come along. So you need a good chisel edge on the brush. That's why these are so important. All right, and you're going to come along with the light edge up or out, facing away from you. You're going to come along the edge of the leaf, and then you lay that light edge in, and then stand back to the edge of the leaf. Okay, you can come along again, lay that light edge in, and then back out to the edge of the leaf. Okay, so you can do 1, 2, however many you want to do. You can add some to the other side if you like, right? So if you want to come along here, lay that in and stand back to the edge. Okay, and then you just leave that. Later on, we're going to come in and shade, but right now you got to let that dry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this brush. This is the part where you want multiple brush basins because these big brushes, or wipe your brush off first before you go into water, because these big brushes hold a lot of paint, which means you have to really work hard to get that paint out of the brush. Okay, so let me zoom back out and you can take a look at how that looks. We've got those leaves done. Okay, and that's our full painting right there. All right, so working our way forward, then the next step would be those orange petals, orange and red petals that are spraying out of the body of the bird itself. And so now you want to look at the kind of order in which to do those, right? Because you want them to look like they're layered, right? So the first one is going to be this one right here, right? That's the one in the back. And then this one right here. Those are both furthest away. Then coming forward, we have this one right here. So that's number 2, right? And then this is number 3. And then this one over here is number 4. That's actually behind the one right here in the middle, which is number 5. So that's the last one we do. Then we add the blue parts. I don't know what those are called, if those are the stamens or what. I think they might be. So we're going to add those, and then we do the body of the bird itself. Okay. All right, so I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for this one. We're going to go down to the 1-inch brush. Okay, so I'm going to get that damp. And I'm going to go to a new plate because I want to work with my flower petal colors, but I don't want to lose this paint, so I'm going to cover it up and set it aside for later. Okay. So our petal colors are primarily pure orange and apple red. And then we have some highlights in there of white with those color, or white with the orange. Don't do white with the apple red because you'll get pink, and we don't want pink in this one, but we do want some varieties of orange. So I'm going to be working with the vivid orange for some highlights, and then adding some yellow and adding some white to get different layers. And look at the picture, you'll see, especially with this one here in the front, this part right here, these are rounded petals, right? So this part right here is probably your brightest area. And so you want that to have your lightest color. The ones in the back, not so much. And then we've got some really cool colors of varying degrees coming out into that. So there's lighter whites and a little bit of the blues and even a little bit of purple, which we're going to make that color. All right. So I'm going to put out some vivid orange. And this is kind of a pasty color coming out of my tube. So I'm actually going to put out just a touch of floating medium because I foresee this giving me trouble. Right? And then we want pure orange. I'm going to tip this down so you guys can see the colors I'm putting out. All right, so I've got pure orange and vivid orange. Vivid on this camera is kind of looking, there we go. So that almost looks red, but then when you put out the red itself, the apple red, you'll see the difference. There. Okay. So then we want some daffodil yellow. And some wicker white. Okay, so those are all the colors in our petals, flower petals. And I've got a 1-inch flat. So like I said, we're going to work on this one and this one. They're in the back furthest. So I'm going to bring this up and let's zoom in on those. Let's work on this one first, right here. So this is going to be primarily the pure orange. So I'm picking up pure orange on my one flat, working that in. All right, and we're going to come right from here. Now this orange is so transparent. This is the problem. So you want to put a little bit of white in there to help with that transparency. And then later we'll come and wash over some of the pure orange once it's dry, okay? So orange with the white isn't going to look very pretty to start with, but it's going to be a good base for our pure orange to show up against, all right? The alternative is, and you could do this, is put your pattern down and then add your background around and leave these not painted. The problem with that is with this type of background, it's tough to do and have the glow look proper. So it's a challenge. And so I end up doing this way with the blend of the white and orange first. And then coming back over it with the pure orange. Okay, so that's got to sit a little bit. And while that's sitting, we'll go do this one up here. And so if you look at that one, it's got primarily the orange coming from the point here down. And then it's dark red, not dark, coming from below up. Okay, but I'm still going to do the orange and white first. Now right in here, because we got that little notch in the blue guy right there. Okay. And so, you know what I think I'm going to do because of this issue, now that I remember, painted this a couple years ago, I'm trying to remember. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of these in that orange and white just to get a base. All right. And then we can come in and do the pretty color blends. So this is the other little blue guy right in here. I'm just going to come right through and go to the edges, and that's fine because that blue and white will cover that up. There. The only thing I would caution you on this is just make sure, just like with any base coating, that you don't leave any hard lines right in the middle, right? So smooth out your strokes all the way to the side, to the ends. Don't stop in the middle and make choppy strokes because you'll see those. it'll leave an edge, and when you go to put your final colors on, that edge is going to stick up and you'll see it. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. So you'll notice I come here and I finish all the way and lift. Okay. A little more orange out. All right, so we just have those other two. A bit of white. I'm gonna go ahead and stand up for these. What is that? Oh, part of the blue. So this comes through here. You get your outline first and then stroke. Fill it in and smooth it out. So creating oversized paintings takes just a little bit different skill set from standard one-stroke painting, because we do the double blending or double loading and blending and shading and highlighting, but you have to work it in stages because of the size. So like this right here, not thinking about, you know, how much transparency was going to weigh into this. We have to do this first, and then we can do the easy fun stuff. Okay. So I just keep picking up pure orange and white. And so this one here is our last one. This one's gonna, is that, yeah, that is in front. So it goes like this. And down through here. I think my favorite part about painting this was actually those blue stamens and the twists that they do and how to get those twists to happen and look pretty. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All set. Now we can come back. This one should be fairly dry, and we can work on the pretty parts, putting in the colors here. So I'm going to wipe off this brush, get that white out of there because I want the pretty orange. All right, so I'm just picking up pure orange, and then I'm going to come and side load a touch of daffodil yellow. Okay. And I'm going to keep that yellow edge down as I come from here and push and stand up. Okay, picking up more of those two colors. I'm going to come from the tip with the yellow edge down, and I'm going to push, come on, push, and stand up. So you have to have a good amount of paint on your brush or it'll be transparent and sticky, okay? So don't starve your brush. Make sure you're picking up plenty of color. Now I'm just getting pure orange. And so see what I did there was I used that yellow as a way to make this look round, like the light's hitting the rounded edges on the petal. See there? Okay, now I'm going to set that brush aside for a second and I'm going to come get my 3/4 flat. Get that damp. And we're going to pick up some apple red. Okay. And we're going to come from the tip here on the chisel and then push and follow that edge and lift. Now that's going to lift up a whole bunch of that orange. So I'm going to wipe that off on paper towel, come back and get pure orange or apple red, excuse me. Come back to the tip of the flower. Let me move this slightly so it's a little better light. There we go. Tip of this petal, and we're going to pull back on the chisel edge only, leaving little streaks of color. Okay, so just keeping that point on the petal, chisel edge sweeping down into that orange, and stand up. A little bit more of that red. I'm going to come from down here now. Chisel edge, pressure, pressure, stand up. And then I left a little bead of color there, so I want to take that down and smooth it out. Now I'm going to wipe off this brush and pick up a little bit of the daffodil yellow. So just getting some on the corner of my brush, right? And we're going to come right in here and work that in so it is its own shade of orange with that red, and push that red down a little bit in the middle and sweep it up towards the tips. Okay, the ultimate thing I want you to keep in mind is as you're working this, you've got to sweep it like a broom. So you're lifting, you're not touching down and pulling. It has to be a sweep, laying color like a broom. It's the same way we use our mop brushes, okay? Little streaks of color. And if it's sticky, it's starting to dry, so maybe leave it and let it can come back to it later. Okay. A little more of this pure orange now. I'm going to come right in here and sweep back into that red. So see all the different colors you're getting just by layering that all in there. I want a little more yellow. I'm going to blend some yellow with my pure orange so I get a little bit brighter. Right in here. Sweep it and then leave it. Okay. All right, let's work on the next one. So that's this one back here, right? I'm going to come and get my pure orange again. I'm going to stand up. Come from the tip. Pull it down. A little bit of daffodil yellow in with that orange. Sorry, I keep forgetting to show you my palette. And it's curved. See, it's not straight. Curved with that stroke. Now I'm going to pick up the apple red on the chisel edge of the brush. We're going to come right here at the bottom and sweep up, up, up. Okay, now you can come on the chisel more. Because I don't want these hard stops with the flat of the brush. So chisel, make it streaky, and see how it kind of goes upward angle with that. I'm going to wipe that red off on paper towel. Terry towel is a good idea to have handy if you have one. I'm going to pick up the pure orange and a touch of daffodil. I'm going to come right back in here, lay that daffodil down, and then come above it and pull with both colors back into that red. And then I'm making sure I finish a nice point on here. So if it goes past your original, that's okay. Now we're just kind of knocking that red back down a little bit. There we go. It's still a little heavy. I come in with orange. I'm going to grab some of this, let's wipe this brush off. I'm going to grab some of this vibrant orange right here. Yeah, that's definitely thick. I'm going to add a little medium to it. And let's lay some of that in there. There. I'm going to leave that for now. I want that to dry, and then we're going to wash over some brighter yellow to lighten up this little curved area right there. Okay, so more pure orange. I'm trying to make each one of these petals look different, unique. So they're not all the same. It's a little bit different process, or it's a little bit different color combination. So like right in here, we're going to go with some, I'm just picking up daffodil and pure orange, and we're going to work that in this curved area here. So I'm just picking that up. It's not a blend and it's not a double load. We're just picking those colors up and then working them together on your canvas. Leaving some light streaks from the yellow and some darker streaks from the orange. Okay. Now I'm going to come and pick up some of the red on my dirty brush. And from this point, we're going to pull it down and push and lift. Grab a little more red from that peak, and we're going to chisel edge down the bottom side to that point. And I'm going to come from here with that red up. A little bit of medium on my brush is going to help this move a little easier. There we go. Working that in with the orange, a little more orange. A little yellow. See, I'm just picking it up. And see, I've got some hard brush lines right there, so I don't want to leave that. I'm going to come back and get my orange and sweep back into the red. A little bit of yellow. And as long as you're sweeping it like a broom on the chisel edge, that will not leave hard line marks, okay? I'm going to get a little more yellow right in here. And I'm going to actually grab a little bit of white right through here. I'm going to push and lift. Just letting all that color streak through here and here. I'm going to take that glare off so you can see a little better. You get some white and some yellow. White, yellow. Kind of working it together a little bit on my brush first. But I'm going to come right in here and sweep that in. See there? And I wipe off my brush. Come back to my orange and yellow. Forget that. And we're going to go back and forth in this area. Softening between those two colors. Getting rid of any hard lines. Grab a little red. Come right up here. I'm going to come right through here with a little bit of that red on my brush. Wipe off my brush. And then just like we did with the leaves, except I'm not leaving any paint on my brush, I'm just going to kind of soften that into that for a little bit of darkening or shading. This is still wet, so I'm going to leave that. All right, so now let's work on this one. This one is mostly light colors. There's not much red in this at all, so it's mostly the orange. We're going to start with that. Okay, so getting all that orange in there. All right, and then I'm going to pick up some yellow. Sorry, just one second. Yeah, some yellow. And we're going to come right in the middle here and lighten up that. More yellow and a touch of white. I'm going to take that brush and I'm going to side load some strong pure orange. So I've got my light color to my left, the pure orange to my right, and I'm going to come right along this edge here, back and forth, flip the brush, side load that white and yellow so it's on the inside, flip the brush so that the orange is on the bottom. Okay, and then work the colors together. So you're just keeping a darker outer edge of orange, and the inner is a lighter blend of orange with the yellow and white. A little more yellow, a little more white. Just kind of work that. You got to build it up a little bit. Just make sure that you're sweeping it so that you don't leave hard lines. Okay, now I'm going to grab some white on that chisel edge of that brush, and right here from the base, I'm going to streak up. So you go up the middle and curve left, curve right. See, and this is dry now, so I'm going to work some of that light color from my brush on this one right here in this spot. I'll side load some of that orange. There. Just to lighten that up a little bit, okay? Just working a little pure orange back and forth here. And down into that red a little. Now I'm going to grab, I'm just going to side load. I wiped off my brush. I'm going to get some medium and I'm going to side load some of this red. And we need to add just a little streak of red coming right through here. So we're coming down from here. We're going to push and stand up, right? Just to get a little bit of that highlight in there. I'm going to go over it once and then I'm going to leave it alone. There. I'm going to get a little bit more of that red now, and I'm going to come address this one just one last time, bringing some of that red up into that orange that we just put in there. There. Okay. All right, so now we're ready to address this one and then finally that one there. So let's move this over a little bit. So this one is very similar to this. And remember, I was talking about right in here, we want our lightest color. So I'm going to first put in my orange, but in this case, I'm going to use Vivid Orange. All right, so I'm loading my brush with Vivid Orange and some medium because my Vivid Orange is a little pasty. All right, and I'm going to come right in here. This is on a dirty brush, so you're going to see some other colors in there, and that's fine. A little bit more. All right, now I'm going to side load a little bit of pure orange on here. And we're going to come from this tip with the pure orange on the outside. Let's do it this way. Come from the bottom. A little more. There. And then same thing on the other side. So I've got that pure orange on that outside edge. Need a little stronger. Push and stand up. Okay, so you can see the difference between the vibrant and the pure. Wiping off my brush, coming and getting daffodil yellow. I'm going to come right in here and just kind of work that in with that wet vibrant. And just make sure I get rid of any brush lines, okay? Then I'm going to grab some white on my chisel edge, come right in here and work that in. Now I've got too much color on my brush. I'm just going to wipe it off and work with what's up here while it's still wet. Okay, so can you see all that highlight? Need just a touch more white, maybe with a little bit medium. Just grab white on the corner of my brush. And you gotta kind of lay it on there, or you can use a mop. I didn't paint this originally with a mop, so I'm trying not to use it. And side load a little bit of that pure orange. Oops, wrong one. There. All right, now I'm going to pick up some apple red on the chisel edge of my brush. Right there, see? And we're going to come right on this side, right where the yellow and the orange come together, right on this line here. I'm going to sweep it up and down and leave it. I'm going to wipe off my brush and I can come here. Let me get just a little bit of that pure orange side loaded on the right side of my brush. There we go. There. Now, the next thing I do is I wipe everything off my brush, get medium on the brush, and I'm going to come right here and work that a little bit. Okay, so just medium, no pressure. If you put pressure, you're going to take your paint off. Just to kind of work that in. Okay. Now we're ready to work on this guy. Now this guy is mostly red with a little bit of orange and yellow. So I'm going to come in with the pure orange first, right in here. Well, we're going to do the whole thing first. Let's cover the whole thing in pure orange because it's a red and orange blend, not just red. And I think that's what my problem is here too. So it doesn't look as vibrant. Okay, so pure orange over the whole thing, then pure orange on my brush, and then red, and I'm going to work the apple red and the pure orange together. Pure orange, apple red. And we're going to come from here, out. If I pick up orange, I'm just going to wipe it off or work it in with my apple red. It's fine. Here. And this whole thing. Yeah, I think that was my problem with the other, was it was a blend. Right, so that's underneath that stamen that's sticking out. Right, and so there's a stroke that goes right up here in the middle, and you come to the chisel. Keep coming back and getting a blend of apple red and pure orange. Come here and go to the tip. Come back down the right side and sweep to blend. I'm going to add a little bit of medium onto my brush. And I'm going to wipe off, come back to the pure orange, and add a little bit of daffodil yellow. We're going to come right back in here. And work that together. Just kind of blend that out into the red. Okay, so you're getting that tone of highlights and darker edges, picking up a little more yellow. Wipe off and come back to the red and the orange. So it's a process of, while the paint is still wet, you're working these dark and light colors together. Okay. All right, so see that little light part in the center, and then you've got that reddish tone. I know it looks weird because that stamen's right in the middle, but that's what we're going for. So now that I know I needed that blend of red and orange together, I can come in here and stop fiddling with this guy. There. That looks better already. Okay, so those are all of our orange toned petals. Let me zoom back out so you can see. There. All right, so now what we want to work on are the stamens. And then we will work on the body of the bird. So I'm going to switch to a third plate. And again, I'm going to kind of cover this up so that I can use those colors later. And we're going to put out our blues and purples. Okay, so we're working with cobalt, white, and Prussian blue. I'm going to come down here so you can see what I'm putting out. So I got cobalt, wicker white, and Prussian. Okay, so I'm going to base coat, mainly base coat these in the cobalt with, and at times I might pick up a little bit of white. So I'm working with my 16 flat with this. All right, so I'm going to load all cobalt, just so you can see here. And then I'm going to side stroke some white on that cobalt edge. And you want to work that together. You don't want streaky white, it's just a highlighted color, okay? All right, so let's come up here and we'll zoom in. So let's work on this one first. So I'm going to come up to the point right here and we're going to slide down. Now we're going to come down with the white on the left-hand side, okay? So I'm touching on the point, I got the white down, and then I'm going to lay to the flat with the blue on the right and the white on the right, on the left. Okay, that's a lot of white, so I'm going to come back and get more blue. There we go. And these are fairly straight, so take care if you start to wobble that edge. I think I've got some pattern wobble there. But what you can do is come back in with your shading and kind of address that. All right, and then this part right here comes out. Oops, I need more white. Comes out, and it makes like an opening here, and then comes down again. Okay, but that's not white. I just did that so you could see what it's doing. So I'm going to come back to mostly cobalt on my brush. Not happy with that bottom edge, and it's not moving for me, so I'm going to get some medium out. Sorry. All right, so dip in a little medium. And try this one more time. There we go. All right, so when you come into this like upper lip of this, I think it's a mouth. It just looks like a mouth to me. But so you're coming down here and it's actually going to get shaded with the Prussian blue. Okay, so there isn't much white down there. There we go. And then here we come through, and I think, one second. Oh, I see. Yeah, it kind of spins and comes down behind this petal here. So we have a lower part of its mouth, and then it comes through here and disappears into the bird itself. Right there. So it's a strange looking little thing, but they are a vibrant blue. And so we need a little bit of that white in there so that it shows with the shading we're going to do with the Prussian. Okay. This actually comes out like that. There. All right, so now I want to let that kind of dry. We'll do the others and then we'll come back and do the Prussian blue shading. So first thing I want to do with this next one, this one right here, is it goes up to this point and then disappears behind this petal and then pops out that side. So I'm going to take this darker color right here and just stroke that side first. There. Okay. The best way to get that point is with a chisel edge. You have to have a good chisel edge, and you can come right up here and tip. So if you tip back on your brush, it'll leave a nice tip there. Okay. All right, now here, so it comes in and it joins or pops back out, I should say, right through here on this side of the petal. And it has a little wiggle thing here, but that'll show up better when we do the Prussian. It's mostly cobalt. Now, when you get to the bottom part, it really lightens up. So I'm going to do this a little bit here. And then I'm just going to sweep down a little bit of blue. Now I'm going to wipe off my brush. Let me first, before I do that, bring this down. Okay, now I'm going to wipe off my brush. And with what blue I have in there, now I'm going to pick up a whole bunch of white and work that into my brush. So all this white here, and we're going to come from the base here, right? And we're going to push up and stand. Okay. And then we're going to come back down here and we're going to push up and stand. And stand. Now we'll pull some Prussian back down, but what really made this look really good was I came in with this brush and then I side stroke a tiny bit of the cobalt. So I've got a white all over my brush and then I side stroke some strong cobalt on one edge. And it came from this edge right here with the cobalt down and I came across like that. And then I came up above that just slightly and did just a little bit more. Okay, and that really made that twist look real. Now we're going to put some white back in there to help. And we're going to have some cobalt coming, or some Prussian coming down. But that made a huge difference. I'm going to wipe off all that white, come back to my cobalt, and just side stroke some white. Okay, so I've got like a double load. Whoop, there we go. A double load. And so this little piece right here has, let's get the top of it first. And then we come down and pull that white down to the bird. Okay. Then we can come with the rest of it over here out. And I got to stand up to get to the rest of this. Okay. So what's important with this one is you've got the dark blue to the outside edge. So let's come from down here. Make sure my hand's not in the way. And then we're bringing it forward and the dark blues to the outside edge. We're going all the way out to the tip and lift. And then from the tip, we're going to come back. And fill in. Okay, so then we just have all that shading to do. I'm going to pick up a little bit stronger cobalt right here. When I stand up, I can see it a little better. There we go. Just kind of working that white in. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting some lighter blue with white blended into my brush into the middle of these, so it helps them look more round. And that way when we come back, and I'm working it so it's not white, it's just a lighter shade of blue. And that way when we come back and do the highlight or the shading with the Prussian, it will look more rounded because we did that light in the center. There we go. Oops. Okay, so that's pretty much all we have to do with those, and then we can just do the shading. So I'm going to clean this brush, and we can come back and start with this one. Right, and so what I'm going to do here is we're going to load it with floating medium. This is still a 16 flat. Load it with floating medium, and then we're going to side stroke Prussian blue. Right, so you get a good amount of it on there with that medium. And then you're going to go around the like the dark edge on this will be the top edge. So you press to the flat, going down, come back this way. Okay. And then when you get to this point here, you're going underneath that orange. And down. All right, so now with the Prussian down, I'm going to come and create this little mouth sort of thing with some wiggles. And that's at an angle, so you're getting a glare. Let's tip it forward. There we go. All right, so here, and then pull some chisel edge detail lines up like that so that it looks like there's little layers and folds in the petal. So I'm on the chisel edge doing that. And then you come along this edge here. Okay, so just some little detail lines. This needs to be stronger. Okay. So pay some attention to that. Don't leave that just with a shading. You want to add some interest in there with some little extra brush strokes, okay? And then here, we're going to come down and then out and then back. So just refer to your photo I sent you to see what all is going on there. All right, now we'll work on this middle one here, right here. So first thing is I'm going to come right here and do some shading because it's popping out from behind that petal. So I don't want it to look too flat. And then we're going to come along the bottom edge with that shading. And then from this side, let's come from here first. We'll put this in. Again with the glare. There we go. All right, so we're going to come down, out, flip it over, shade against that petal. So you got light in the middle and then dark on both sides, okay? And then from here, I'm going to go up, down, up. So wiggle it like a rose petal. And then back down. And from a couple of these, I want you to pull chisel edge streaks down. So where these wiggles are, like right here, this one's longer, and then this one comes longest all the way down. You got to have enough paint on medium on your brush so that it's a solid line and not sputter. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see all that. There we go. Now you can see it. All right, so you've got the little twists in here. And then we'll come and dress this one. I'm going to come from here first. So strong Prussian. Make those little chisel pulls back so it's not flat. And right here, it makes a little bit of a curve and then comes back. Oops, not like that though. There, like that. And then on this edge, you got the dark blue up, little jagged wiggles. And then here, you're going to pull it back with a bit of a twist on the chisel. And then this outer edge, you're just going to have that Prussian come all the way down. There. And then we're going to come from all the way out here with that Prussian on the outside at bottom edge, more medium. Okay, so you got the shading along that all the way out to the tip. Okay, so that's our 3 blue stamens. Okay, so let's back out. Ooh, I almost had an accident. All right, so that's where we're at so far. We've really just got this big guy right here to finish and then add the stem coming over the top of him. So, or her. So this has, if you look at the picture, it's mostly light colors here, right? We've got some very light pale yellow and then some darker yellow. And then we've got the reds with the oranges. And then underneath, we've even got some blue and some purple. Okay, so all, and then green as well. So all kinds of colors represented here. It's kind of a rainbow. And excuse me. So I'm going to put out or come back to, I should say, my petal colors. And I'm going to come back to my big brush, right? So first thing I'm going to do is make sure I've got enough color. I think I do. Let me put out a little bit more yellow. Okay. All right, so this is my big 2-inch brush, and I'm going to be picking up a bunch of yellow. I'm just picking it up, all right, yellow and some white. Just picked it up, not worked it in, didn't blend it, nothing. I'm going to come right in here, and we're going to get this really bright center. I got some heavy white right there, so I'm working that out. Okay. Now, I don't want pink from my reds, so I'm going to have to wipe out a lot of this brush to get that white out of there. But I want to make sure, let's come down here first and pick up some more daffodil yellow. And work that into the edges of the lighter, paler yellow. More daffodil. Actually, I think we'll be fine. I'm not going to worry about that white. Come out. And the thing here is it can't be thin paint. You need lots of paint because you don't want you want it to go into the cracks and grooves of the canvas without leaving sputtery green spots, okay? And I don't want to use too much medium because yellow is a transparent color and medium will even make it even more transparent. All right, wiping off this brush then, because I had mostly yellow in it. I'm going to come and get my red. So I'm just picking up red and a little bit of orange all together on my brush, okay? And we're going to come from right about here And I'm going to push out to the chisel like that. Okay. So right through there and then back. Now I think I'm going to grab my 3/4 flat, which is clean, and I'm going to work those two colors together while they're wet. You could use a mop brush even if you wanted to. You get a little red on the corner. And what's important here is that I'm coming right across the base of all those things sticking out. Okay. And then I'm going to continue with some red. I'm sorry, I'm going to put this big brush down because it's too big for what I want to do now. So it worked fine for the yellow stuff, but I need a little more smaller. So let's bring some red in here. And flick it into the yellow. So I'm just kind of working that back and forth. Now I'm going to put out some dioxazine purple. Before I forget. Not much, just a little right there. And oh, before I do that, let's put this tip out here. So we got to come back and streak it back like that. Okay. Little medium. We'll have to do that again, but because that medium thinned it, but at least it's in there now. We'll put some yellow back in actually. Okay. So I'm going to get red and I'm going to lay it in here. Picked up a little yellow, but that's okay. Right there. And then I'm going to pick up the dioxazine purple just on my dirty brush. And from the base of the stem right here, chisel edge that to add it and then pull it up into that red. And it's going to pick up some of that red. That's okay. All right, so push hard and lift. Push hard and lift. Pick up a little more of the purple. Pull that out on the chisel. Yeah, I think that white in my brush did turn that red a little pink, but that's okay. So right in the middle, I'm going to pull some up. This helps it to look round. If you have a little higher in the middle and then even higher on the outsides, and it's lower kind of in between, it gives you a more rounded perspective. All right, wipe off that brush. And we're going to pick up some of the red again. I'm going to come in here, here. Now that's going to pick up purple when I do that. So I wipe that off, come back and get red. So a little bit of purple picked up, wipe it off, get red. I don't mind if a little bit of purple ends up in there, but I didn't want it turning my red dark. A little more red. Okay, so now out here, I want to start adding some of those darker colors, right? So this red, let's pull this red out here a little more. There we go. Now I'm going to pick up some cobalt. Let me wipe this brush off. So cobalt, and right in here, now that that yellow is dry, which we don't want, we will have green in here, but we want the cobalt too. Right in there. Okay, wipe that off, and then we come back to some sap green. Grab a little sap green on here, maybe a little medium with it. Right, and we're going to come right along the edge here with that green and then sweep it. A little more, maybe a little bit of the citrus with it. Sap, medium. See, it's picking up that red. I guess I better clean that brush. I didn't want red in there. It's okay, but okay. So medium and sap green. There we go. All right, so that streaks almost all the way out to this tip right there. And then works up into that yellow a little bit and under the blue. Now I want some strong without medium sap on the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to get some yellow on the other half of my brush because we want to blend that green with the yellow. Grab some white on that yellow and right up here, lighten that up a little more yellow. With white and yellow. More yellow. Oop, got a little streak of green in there, that's okay. More yellow. I'm going to get just a touch of orange with this yellow. Actually, let me clean this brush first before I get colors I don't want. All right, so we wanted yellow and some orange right in here. And we're going to pull that back. Into our red. Then get red, and I'm out of red. Side loaded a little bit of red with that yellow. Just going to perk that red up a little bit too. So with all this wet, right, you're working these colors. So you're bringing some red out here, some yellow in there. A little more red. A little more yellow. So the yellow's on the yellow side of the brush, the red's on the red side of the brush. Right, and you're just getting a really pretty streaky blend of color. Getting a little more red out here. And coming down there. And then yellow in the middle. You just have to keep in mind which color's on what side of your brush. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Wipe off. Actually washed off, excuse me. And I get a little red here. And then I'm going to pick up some purple. I want this purple to show. It looks so dark here, but I need a little of red in there with it, I think, to help it lighten it up just a little. There, and maybe pull some of it out so it's thinner with that red. That's better. More red. The little chisel edges of that red going out, and then we've got blue. Where'd my blue go? Right in here. There. Wipe off that brush. And then soften those edges. I picked up a little bit of yellow on that corner of that brush to help bring that blue and yellow together. And then finally, come back to my green, my sap right down here on the chisel edge, and then strengthen that back up into that lighter green. So I went through these colors twice, if you didn't notice. Right, it's kind of a process that you have to do to get the blending to look good. You got to kind of get your first layer on and then come back and do, at least that's what works for me. Okay, now I'm going to come back just with a little bit of yellow and white right in here. Bring that more yellow. And a little bit here. Grab a little green. Okay. So now that's our bird. And all we have left to do is our stem. Okay, so I'm going back to my 1-inch brush real quick. We will put this stem in here. So I'm going to, oops, I'm going to start, I got all these plates laying around. I'm going to start with just sap. I know I already have sap on here, but it needs it, just so you can see right there. And then picking up the citrus green. So right in here is a little, it's curved, right? So it cups it. So it goes around the other side and then picks it back up down here. So it's going around like that, and you need that light in there like this, and then come around it like that. And then sap. The sap green comes around and around and around and down. So now I can come in with some citrus and just help that. It's nothing special. It's just, I'm going to pick up just a touch of yellow here. Oop, that's a lot of yellow. There. And then sap back in there. I've got white on that brush I don't want. So it's just important that you kind of follow the flow of this piece right here. And don't forget the bottom. I'll do that after I take it off my easel. So I'll come back in and add the bottom part of this on the bottom part of my easel. Or on the bottom part of my canvas, excuse me. Okay, so there's our stem. Now, I did do one thing opposite what I should do, because this should actually be dark in here. Let me get a smaller brush. This should be dark in here, going around the neck of the bird. And then light right there. There we go. Okay. So now the last thing we have to do is shading. So I'm going to take my 3/4 flat, and I need some more sap put out. We're going to shade the leaves and add some highlights and things to some parts of the, excuse me, some parts of the petals. Okay. So first thing I want to do is we're going to put out some floating medium. All right, so I've got sap green here, right there. I know that this is dry next to it. So I've got my 3/4 flat. I'm going to load it with medium. Oop, that's got a lot of water in it. Excuse me. Let me get that out of there. Okay, load that with medium. And then you're going to side stroke your sap. Okay. And then the shading is what's really important with these oversized canvas paintings to get the dramatic look. Okay. So you do a lot with the brush when you first stroke things, but it's really important to come in and do some shading afterwards. So I'm going to come right through here, push hard to the flat, come down through this curve right there. All right, and that's going to help that look better and a little more realistic. Maybe a little bit more floating medium. And stand that up right there. Okay. So it's important you go down the flat of the brush when you're shading so that it spreads that paint out and it goes from fades from heavy to nothing. All right, so it creates a shadow look. You're going to do that on that side. And then the same thing on where these folds are, right? So on the flat, come down, stand up. Let's come from this direction. Follow that edge. I can't see. There we go. Oh, that doesn't look very pretty at all. Let's try that. There. Okay, so you're just creating some light and dark areas. Out to the tip. Oh, sorry. I went all the way from here out to the tip. Okay, you can also come and shade along that stem on one side. Okay. So on this one especially, heavy sap green, come back in and add that split back in because I think I got a little big with my stroke. There. So you can clean up any of those edges that you overran too, like I did there. Just make sure it's the same color as your background color. So if you've got, if you're working up in here, then you want to add a little bit of citrus green or yellow in there. Okay. So then we come over here and in between these leaves, we want to shade so that it pushes one back behind the other. So this one's the one in back. We're going to come down through here. Now, if it doesn't show up very well, then you want to add a little bit of blue. And I use Prussian blue to that green. So Prussian blue with the green, medium, green, and Prussian blue. I got green all over my brush because I was doing that fill in. Okay, and that will help make that darker coming down into that area. Okay. Tip that forward so you can see. There you go. So just don't be stingy with that color. You want to get enough of it in there that it looks like a shadow and not just a dark line, okay? And then coming through this way, same thing. Okay. So when you have an already dark green and you want a little shadow or shading, add a little dark blue to it, and that will create enough difference. So Prussian will work. Cobalt will work, but it's a little lighter. There. So see how I got all that nice and dark down in there now? All right, and then we can come up here. And shade in there. Of course, you didn't see that because I didn't have the camera in the right place. Sorry. There we go. Apologies. So I came through here and shaded down there, and then up here along there. Okay. You can do the same thing under here as well, but you don't need the blue on that, just the sap with the medium should be fine. There. Okay, so that's all the leaf shading. Now, the petals we did a lot of work on, so there isn't a whole lot left to do with those. I just like to come in with some medium and some of my lighter colors here and there to spruce up some things. So I might come in with medium. I'm still working with my 3/4 flat, medium, and some yellow, daffodil yellow and white. And right in here, oops, I need more white. Work that a little more. And you have medium on your brush so that it's thinned out. And you're just layering a little bit of color in there. Okay. That's yellow. It looks white on the camera, but it really is yellow, I promise. All right. Come in with yellow and medium right in here. Let's lighten that up now. And follow the flow of the petal. Okay. Wipe off. Maybe get medium and some red right in here. Okay. So these are just tweaks that I do after I'm all done, and things that I feel like I want to do to make this just look a little bit better. Medium and yellow right up in here. Whoops, with some orange maybe. Do I have any orange left? There we go. There. All right, so the other thing I see is that I want to fix some spots where I maybe got a little buzzed out with my tips of my petal. So I can come in with my 3/4, especially right here where it's that sap green. And I can clean up any edges I need to. Just be careful because I'm using medium so that I can kind of soften it out into my background so that it doesn't make it look like it was added after, right? You want it to kind of blend in. So just like over on that far side, I'd have to try to match that background color. So I was being very careful not to have to do that. Right in here. Right. And then this is also how you can get some of that chalky white stuff from, if you left any from the transfer paper, can come off now too. So, all right. I'm going to get my script liner. And I think I'll use some inky citrus green. I have just enough of it left here. And let me zoom back out. All right, so I'm going to sign. And there we go. That is our oversized bird of paradise painting on a 24 by 30-inch canvas. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a lot about oversized painting. And thanks for joining me.